and welcome to the Grassroots Coachcast, episode 6. I'm one of your hosts, Dave.
And I'm Ben. How is everybody?
Today we're going to be talking about day 3 of level 1. And in our retro review, we'll be talking about the legendary Brian Clough. Okay, so Ben, how's it been going this week?
Yeah, all right, mate. Not bad. So we had training this week. So I tried out a few new practices. It went reasonably well. Focus was on defending and overloading the defenders and seeing how they cope with that. So it was interesting. On reflection, I think I made the pitch a bit too big, so it didn't kind of. I think they actually found it a bit too easy, bizarrely, but it kind of worked, and I took quite a lot from it. So yeah, it was mixed, I would say, but it's all learning, and they responded pretty well. But it was a bit of a weird session because we had our official photos done this week. And we had kind of allocated slots. So there's something like 60 or 70 kids who are going to try and have this free-for-all, get all their pictures done. So I actually finished training early so we could all get our pictures done. So yeah, the practice was good. But yeah, on reflection, I do things a little bit differently. But yeah, it kind of worked, which is good. And I'm going to go probably through it tomorrow with the tutor. It's the final day for me, so we've had a bit of homework this week, so that'll be one of the things I'll discuss with him. But yeah, not too bad actually. We are due to have a game tomorrow. I'd be amazed if it's on. Elijah had a game today, and we went along there, and got there. Thought, well, obviously it's on because we've not heard otherwise.
Yeah,
of course, the pitch was rock hard. I mean, it was ridiculous. And no opposition, so all of us have turned up, and there's no opposition there at all. And it got to sort of kick-off time, still no opposition. Sort of thinking, I don't think it's on.
It's not on, is it?
No, and then the sort of manager turned up late. Actually, we were like, "Well, there's no opposition here." So he had to phone his wife, and he's like, "Have I got any emails?" And he had this email saying, "Oh, the soccer school's off." They obviously do a soccer school at this venue for other kids. But they just sent him that email. So there's obviously a generic email they send to every parent who's got a kid registered at that soccer school, I guess. And that was their cancellation email. So nothing from the manager to him, no personal text, nothing. Yeah. He got this email after he left the house. So in the end, he phoned up and he wasn't very happy. He left a bit of a grumpy voicemail. So the kids had a run around for 20 minutes. Elijah got filthy, got back in the car, came home. Froze. That was.
It's been pretty cold, hasn't it? And like you say, expecting it to freeze overnight, I think.
Yeah. So, and of course, because I'm not around tomorrow, I've already emailed the opposition manager for tomorrow and said, "Look, I'm not around. Can you phone Stu, my assistant, if it's off?" But I've not had anything back, so I'm probably going to drop him a line first thing tomorrow before I leave and just say, "Look, is it on?" I doubt it will be, but
yeah.
So yeah, interesting morning. How was you didn't have training, I guess, did you today? So
no, so
did
I mean,
you
just
guys train. Was it? Were you able to train or not?
So
So
we trained beforehand. We trained before the match, and then went into the match today.
So you did play?
Yeah, but I was obviously at the course, so just had to check in. I was checking my phone when I could, and then just finding out after it had all finished. But I can't remember if I'd said we were kind of experimenting with doing a bit of an extended warm up for training before the matches. But I suspect it's not gone that well today just because of the weather. It's pretty freezing.
Was it on grass?
It's a 3G pitch, this one.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
How'd they get on?
We got beat.
Right.
So, yeah, and we were down to our 7 apparently today. So a few illnesses in the squad. So we basically had no subs. So we were 1-0 down in the first half, and then everyone just ran out of steam. We had no subs, and then letting a few more goals in the second half.
Yeah, that's tough actually. Even doing 7-a-side, it's tough.
Yeah, it's a big pitch, isn't it? You know, like you say, even 7-a-side from one end of the pitch to the other, it's a long way. But you know, it's all learning, like you say. Just quick question. I mean, you mentioned there about the training session that it was a bit too easy because there was more space. So I'd have thought physically it was tougher. But is that because they had more time on the ball to control it and stuff?
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't know. It's weird. On reflection, the attacking team found it easy to start with, and then they kind of I introduced a few different things. So I put wide zones in sort of part way through to progress it, and I said, you know, the attacking team have got to keep a player in each wide zone, and they actually found it harder doing that, which was interesting. The defending team found it easier when when the players are out wide. Their decision making wasn't as good, and they found it a little bit easier. And they were pretty good actually at knowing when to sort of press the man, when to sort of hold their shape. And what was great about it was there was loads of communication, and loads of organising amongst themselves, which I was really pleased with. And funnily enough, the attacking guys, very little communication. So it was quite an interesting exercise, even if it maybe didn't go as I possibly envisaged it going. I kind of took quite a lot from it, and I sort of really reinforced which players I've got who find it a bit more difficult vocally to communicate. But I was really pleased with the defenders. It was brilliant the way they were sort of really, and by instinct, 2 of them out of the 4, it was like a 6v4. 2 of them are very vocal and very good at doing that sort of side of it, which was good. So yeah, there's a few things to take from it, but I think the fact the pitch was so big, I wanted it a bit more compact and a bit more of a challenge and a bit more almost frantic, if you like. And it probably wasn't a bit like that. It was a bit too, but like I said, a bit too much time on the ball maybe, which you probably wouldn't get in a game. So yeah, that's probably what I take from it. But I'll definitely do it again and maybe add a few different progressions in there and make it a bit smaller just to try and get the final result that I was hoping for. So
yeah. No, sounds good.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what Pete, my coach tutor, thinks tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know what you've done that for. I didn't get it.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm sure that won't be the feedback.
Hopefully not.
So, anything else from the news this week? I think we had a Champions League week, didn't we? So,
well, yeah, probably just. I mean, I don't want to be, obviously we're Liverpool fans, I don't want to be anti-Man United, but honestly that performance left me so cold. It was awful to watch. I mean, I think even the most staunch Man United fan would, I'm sure if you ask them, they would say, yeah, it's not great. I mean, it's one thing playing like that if you're trying to get the best out of the tools you've got, but if you spent the amount of money they've got and you got a £90 million player on the bench for whatever reason, whether he's fallen out, clash of egos, I don't know. But honestly, it was just so dull. And I just think these days, I don't even think a 0-0 is a great result away from home. I really don't, because I think there's...
Yeah, you need that away goal, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And teams are so good now at attacking and nicking goals. I don't really get it. But I mean, they'll probably win 1-0 or something and go through. So what do we know? But yeah, it was very, very, very ordinary to watch.
I think with I mean, Mourinho's been unreal, hasn't he, in terms of results?
You can't
winning things.
Obviously, no, you can't. You're right,
but he's an out of possession type of coach, isn't he? He doesn't really want to have much possession in his teams, and he wants to wait for the other team to have a mistake. And, you know, I think the players, though, that United have got, they're all better with the ball. You know, so you've got that weird kind of mishmash. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if that evolves. You know, but I don't really. It's not lack of money. You know, that not lack of investment in the squad that they're missing. I just don't really see. You know, there's a strategy there. You know, a real way of playing other than, you know, hitting the teams on the break and waiting for them to make a mistake.
Yeah. I mean, they brought Sanchez in, who he didn't have much of an effect on the game, and he didn't really touch the ball that much, and he just looked pretty ordinary, like most of them did. You know, or they defended well, and you know, I mean, De Gea made a ridiculous save, but yeah, they did defend well. They didn't create many chances, Sevilla, but.
One thing I would say is I think we consistently underestimate Seville.
Yep.
And I actually think they're a pretty good side, you know.
And they're quite capable of going away and getting a goal.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't really try and go for it and get at least one or two, because they've got enough good, you know, you got Lukaku there, you got Sanchez, you got Martial, Russia, they're all available.
Yeah.
It's just it was just so dull. But, you know, if they get to the final and win it, we just look like a pair of Muppets.
Yeah. Won't be the first.
No.
I thought, one thing I will say, I was really impressed with Chelsea.
Yeah.
Apart from that moment of madness.
Yeah.
Where it's just, I think I texted you at the time. You know, I'm frustrated when and if, you know, one of my girls does that sort of move where it's a dangerous pass right across goal, and you know, you do that, and you know, you've got the forward line that Barcelona have got. You're just asking for trouble, aren't you?
I honestly don't think they'd have scored otherwise, because, like I said, I didn't think it would be as, I wouldn't say it's one-sided, but Chelsea played so well. I didn't expect that. I thought they'd struggle because they haven't been amazing recently. But they were really, I mean, they should have won 3 or 4-0 really, but they'll probably regret that. I mean, that pass, I can't remember who did it actually. Was it Christensen? I can't remember, but
I can't remember, to be honest.
I was watching it from a distance. I think Elijah shouted, "Oh, they've equalised," and I sort of ran in and I just saw it from a distance from the kitchen. I was just like, "Who has played that ball?"
Yeah.
What's there? It's just the first thing you tell your defenders, isn't it? Just don't do it.
Yeah, and
it's a shame because I think if they hadn't conceded that away goal, they had a right chance. But it's difficult to see them go.
And they deserved the win. Absolutely.
They did. Williams was amazing. Actually, he was so good. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But we'll see. They're all the good thing is all the ties are set up, apart from Liverpool's. Obviously, they're all set up pretty nicely. So I'm looking forward to all the return legs. Actually, there's some absolute crackers.
Got to be honest, that's just the way I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to be
we're safely through, and I can just enjoy, you know, as a you know, not quite a neutral, but you know, just watching the other games. You always have one leaning one way or the other, whether it's because you want the underdog or you know. But as neutral as you can be, you can just enjoy the football, then, can't you?
Yeah, and hopefully play a few fringe players, give them a run out, which would be good. I don't think, maybe not defensively, but maybe, you know, in the attacking positions, maybe give Ings a game and let Solanke have some minutes and such. So
yeah,
all good. So yeah, it's going to be good. See the quarterfinal lineup. It's going to be pretty damn tasty.
Yeah. Of course, we've got the final of the Carabao Cup tomorrow, so that should be another. It should be a decent game, actually. I kind of fancy Arsenal for that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Actually, after should give Wigan a quick mention. That was unbelievable.
Oh yeah. Didn't see that one coming.
No, it was just like the Alamo. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. They had one shot and it went in. And Man City just battered them, but they defended so well. They deserved a bit of luck. And yeah, I think they were. I think a mate of mine said they were 25-1 to win or something. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
but yeah, let's see how City react after that. If they, if that affects them or not. I think Arsenal have got nothing to lose. I don't think anybody really expects Arsenal to win after what happened in midweek with that awful performance against that Swedish team. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And of course, Man United, Chelsea, we can just sit back and enjoy, and knowing that
some bone crunching tackles.
Yeah, and we've made up some ground today on one, or if not both. So yeah, it's quite a nice position to be in, really, after today's win. So
yeah, cool. Okay, shall we move on?
Yep.
Okay, so let's move on to our main section then, which is our day 3 of level 1. Okay, so we'll start with yourself, Ben, as we always do. So
you go.
How did you go on your day 3?
Yeah, so I think, as has been well established, we're a week out of sync. So my day 3 was last week. Probably my favourite day, I would say, out of the 3. I really enjoyed it. I was put right on as soon as I arrived, sort of sat down. Oh, so who did a practice this week? Of course, I put my hand up. Right, Ben, out you come.
Stuck your head out the parapet then.
Yeah, take the whole group through what you did. I was like, oh, God. So I had a Sabutio board to work with. He's like, right, everyone, come on, gather around. So everyone's sort of like huddled around this Sabutio board. And I just sort of talked him through what I'd done, which was, it was an attacking drill. Sorry, not drill, practice. Oh, it's the first time I've said that since I've been on
Slipped. Oh, yeah, and it's all recorded as well.
Oh, let's hope he never listens to it. Petty, if you're listening, I'm sorry. So, yeah, it was an attacking practice. I've just got to wrap my brains around what it was now. I did it 10 days ago. So it was zonal. So I had 2 flanks, which only the attacking players could go on. And what I did, I kind of did the pitch into thirds. And I had, I think it was initially a 6v3 outfield players and a goalkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
And the point was that the attacking players had to sort of stick in their zones and I tried to overload the defenders. The thinking behind it was, in a lot of games this season, we've got into the final third and the final ball's been poor, or we've shot when we shouldn't have shot, we've passed when we shouldn't have passed, we've over dribbled. So just trying to get the kids to think about how to use the ball in certain areas of the pitch, and if there's no attack on, you can go backwards, etc., etc., etc. And it worked really well, and I just kind of progressed it by adding an extra defender in, so making it a 6v4, then a 5v5, and just gradually making it that little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
And it was good, and I sort of explained it to him in the group. I had a couple of questions from the group about little things that I'd done, and he kind of just said, great, I can see the purpose of it. He kind of said, well, what's the incentive for the defenders? And I was like, oh yeah, good point, because I was just sort of getting them to give the ball back and start again from the attacking side. So I said, yeah, okay, I could introduce a goal. They can have a free shot, or as soon as they get the ball, they can just try and score from long range, get a point. And a couple of other things.
I thought you had some I might be getting confused between the different ones you've sent me, but I thought you did have.
No, I did, but I didn't do it in the actual practice.
Right, okay. I was going to say, I thought I saw some goals at the side.
That's why, because he said to me, and I said, well, I was going to do goals, and I actually didn't. And he said, well, it would have been a good idea as an incentive, because I had the goals at the side.
Yeah.
He said, well, where would the goal be on a football pitch? I said, well, it'll be opposite the goal I've got. Because there you go then. Just simple things, of course. He said, you don't need to overcomplicate it. And he just discussed a couple of other things I could have tried to progress it, but he said it was good. He could see the purpose of it, how I developed it, and I got a round of applause. So I felt quite good about it, and I was glad in the end I got up there and did it first and kind of got it out of the way. So it was good.
Cool. And did anyone else? So you go up first. So did other people have to get up and do the same?
Yeah. So one of the lads, Jamie, that I've sat with and worked with since I've been doing it, he went up after me, and then another guy went up, and you could see the third guy went up. You could tell he was really, really nervous, really nervous. He coaches under eights, and he was sort of shaking a bit, and you could tell he was kind of. His was. I'm not saying mine was amazing because it wasn't, but his was quite basic. But it was all about his 5-a-side team going to 7-a-side. So he was just trying to work on getting them used to playing on a 7-a-side. So there wasn't a lot of progression or stuff in it, but it was still good, and his ideas were good as to how to get the kids to use the pitch and all that. And again, he was just kind of suggesting, well, how would you progress it? What about thinking about this? What about thinking about that? And it's all good stuff, and all quite valuable. So 3 of us did that, and then 2, he got us to work in groups on our tables, and he said, right, you can either take your practice you've discussed with me, which obviously we had, and add some progression to it. What would you do to develop it? And to those who hadn't done it, because there's a few there that don't coach teams, so they wouldn't have taken a session. He said, right, come up with a sort of plan and how you progress it. So then he got 2 guys from one table to actually go out on the grass with us and deliver a session or a practice and develop a little bit, which a couple of the guys did. And we all sort of joined in, and they directed us and instructed us what we were doing.
And this is all still in the morning?
Yeah, this is all in the morning. And it was good. They were, again, quite simple, but the way they progressed was quite nice. And again, they had the pitch laid out straight away, and we used that pitch for all the practice, so they didn't have to faff around moving cones and this, that, and the other, which is what I've learned the last 2 months. And I've been doing the same thing. I've laid my area out, and I've not moved it. I might have picked cones up, but I've not been walking around putting cones down and wasting time. So everything I'm doing now is I'm trying to do setup straight away. So that was kind of it, really, in terms of people taking practices and stuff. So it was a bit kind of different, I guess. Not everybody had to do it. I think he was more looking when he was sat with everybody on the tables, because he goes round and spends 10 minutes on each table discussing with people. So that's how he's kind of assessing everybody, I think, in what they're doing. He's not necessarily getting them to go out on the pitch and do it, which is fine, and you can do it in different ways. So he's kind of using that, I guess, as his kind of assessment tool. So nobody else actually had to do it. And he was actually saying, look, this is the last full day we've got. What do you want from me? What do you want to do? And we all said, well, most people said, well, we'd like you to sort of take us through another couple of sessions, how you build up a practice. Yeah. So he did that after lunch. And then he said, we sort of went back in, and he said, right, he said, throw some things at me that you want me to go through. So somebody said shooting, somebody said shielding, somebody said pressing or something, I don't know. So we came up with 4 ideas. He said, right, we'll go outside and I'll develop a practice. He goes, I'm not going to plan it. He goes, I'm just going to use my experience based on what you've thrown out at me to come up with something. So, yeah, we did that. It was really clever. He just he put 2 goals up and he set out a pitch. And we initially started with a shooting exercise, and then he introduced, right, you can't have a shot. If the ball's played into you, you've got to shield the ball before you either lay it off or have a shot. Then he was saying, right, you can't have a shot till you've had a minimum of 2 touches, no more than 5 or something. So you could have 3 or 4 touches. So little tiny things like that. And he said, right, here's 2 wide zones. If you go in the wide zone, you can't be tackled. Then you've got to play it into somebody, and all these little things. So he got all these things we'd suggested in this one practice, and he linked them all together. And it's it's not rocket science, but it's still clever the way he does it. And you're sort of a bit envious, going, "Oh God, I wouldn't have thought of those things," But
It's almost like a party trick, though, isn't it? I was saying last week about the stand-up comedians and, being able to retrieve loads of different things based on experience. Like,
well, that's what he said again, and he said, I think I mentioned it in last week's recording, where he just said, I'm just using my experience because you guys haven't got that yet, but you will get it. He said, over time, these are things I've used over the years, and he's obviously got them all tucked away in his brain. So as soon as he hears shooting, he can draw on probably 6, 7, 8, 10 different things he can try. And it's probably very, very easy. But yeah, your stand-up comedian analogy is probably spot on, I think. So it was good. So we just did that. It was just more after what we could get out of him, really. And I was quite keen on things to, because I've got a couple, well, one in particular who doesn't integrate as well with the others, I don't think. And I said, have you got any tips and this, that, and the other to get them involved a bit more? And he came up with a couple of very simple games, like four guys, 4 kids, put your arms around each other's shoulders and make a circle, put a bib down the back of somebody's shorts, and you've got to stop one other guy from grabbing that bib. So you're just moving around in a group and trying to stop this other guy from grabbing the bib. It's dead simple, and of course it's quite a laugh because everyone's sort of having a bit of a chuckle about it. And he said that's a really good one. He said try and focus on put the bib in the shorts of the kid who's a bit more withdrawn, and make him the centre of attention. And you kept it off him, put his arm up, and big him up, and all that. It's a really simple thing, which is quite cool. And then a few other people wanted to talk about how to control people when they're misbehaving, which is quite interesting. And again, he said one thing he does, which I thought was quite cool and clever. He said he gets at the start of a practice, if he thinks there's kids who might play up or whatever, or just general rules at the start of his season or whatever, he says, I get the kids to set the rules. So he says, you come up with 3 rules between you all, and I'll come up with 3 rules. So he says, if they come up with rules as well, like, no talking, he said, they've set the rules. They're buying into it by setting them themselves. And then you sort of, rather than, if somebody's misbehaving, you say, oh, and you ask the group, you say, right, well, what's so-and-so doing? Do you think that's not we agreed? Oh, yeah. This. Well, how do you think we should deal with that? And he said, just involve them. Don't just stand there dictating to them. He says, everybody's different. You can try different stuff. He goes, that's one that I try. And he said, then you get the kid who's misbehaving has to just follow you around. So as you're moving around the pitch or you're coaching, he said they have to stay next to you. But he said, then start asking them questions about, well, what can you see? What can you see that's going on here? Do you think this is good? What's bad? He says, and then he says, what you'll find is they'll soon pack it in. So
yeah,
to put him in, I did think about doing that this week, but they were pretty well behaved, my lot, so I didn't really need to do any of that.
Keep that one in your back pocket for another day.
It's in the so I'm slowly building up my, what's that phrase? There's a film, and it's like I don't know. There's like it's not memory box, but I can't remember. But it's like your mental something palace, your mind palace or something. I can't remember what film that's from. But
Pass.
You've got like your mind palace, and it's your secret mind palace in your head of where you store everything and you compartmentalize everything. So
all right, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort of mentally do that. So yeah, it was a good day. That's kind of where we got to, and then he just gave us. Well, I've been fretting about this a bit tonight. He said, I've written down that he said develop or come up with 6 sessions for next week, and I thought, well, yeah, and I thought,
one each.
Is that 6 sessions? So there's going to be, I don't know, what's 6 times 18? 6.
Yeah, it must be one.
Well, that's what
between the tables.
Yeah, so I've come up with 2. I've done the one I did this week, and I've got another one that I've just jotted down some ideas that I'm going to try. So I've got 2 kind of full sessions, if he asks, but I haven't done 6. I thought, I can't do 6. I struggle with 1 a week, let alone doing 6. So we'll see how that goes. And I think, yeah, then we're just going to try and get our book signed off tomorrow. So yeah, so all good. So the bulk of it has been broken, and we're on the final stretch now. So it'd be good to have the Sundays back. As much as I've enjoyed it, and it's been
I know what you're saying. Definitely
fantastic. It's been a great thing to do, and I'd recommend any coach at any level should do it, because you learn so much. Even if you're just doing a little league team down the park, even if you get nothing more out of it than how you should deal with the kids, little tips and tricks. Even if you don't want to plan a massive session, I think there's so much that comes out of it. It's amazing. But yeah, I'll be glad to finally finish and get it all signed off. So hopefully we'll sign the book tomorrow. So fresh off the boat from today. How was it?
Yeah, so ours was good. I think yours and mine consistently do seem to be quite different. So I think my third day was very much like day 1 and 2, only we focused on the extend part. So I talked last week about that whole build, develop, extend, and you're working on a particular thing. And so day 1 had been all around the build activity, day 2 had been around the develop, and today we were working on the extend. So you're really getting more. You're almost at match conditions then.
Yeah.
And but actually, I mean, before I get into the meat of it, one of the things I found interesting. So I got there just in time again. So just got it down to
how far's the drive?
It's just over half an hour. It's about 35 minutes or something. So it's just
similar journeys, I think.
Yeah, so I'd aimed to sort of get out of the house about 8:15, but didn't quite do that. So I ended up cutting it a bit fine. And as I walked in, the tables were laid out differently, and there was kind of a little bit of disruption in the room. And because on the first couple of days, so on the first day you don't know anyone, then you do all your icebreakers and whatever, and you're paired up and your groups. So on day 2, you're all sat in the same places. And then I came in this morning and all the tables were different. So before we had 3 tables, now we've got 4 tables. Everyone's sat in different places. So I walked in, I think I was the last to join, and I kind of looked around. It's like, it's all different. Oh, well, I'll just sit down. And the instructor was laughing, says, oh, look at that. He just rolls with it, just... So I had no idea what was going on before. But when I sat down, I thought, he's actually planned an arrival activity. So we're talking about the arrival activities for the courses and whatever. Yeah. I think he'd sort of done that for the course, for the day. So right. I thought, he just adapted that idea of not sort of sat around, everyone's checking their phones and whatever. He's sort of, as soon as people are in the room and arriving, he's got people engaged and sort of getting ready for the day. And I thought that was interesting. Just, I was focused on the whole arrival activity for, a particular practice. But yeah, you can apply it to anything.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So yeah, I think today we probably focus more than the previous days going back to the 4-corner model. Yeah. And so all the previous days, we pretty much focused on the technical and the physical. But he was really keen to press home today around the psychological and the social. And so, right. Later on in the day when we get on to designing the practices and stuff, he's trying to say, well, are you ticking the boxes for the social corner? Are you ticking the boxes for the psychological corner? So, again, I thought that was pretty interesting. Now, what he talked about as well, he basically just asked that simple question. And you mentioned about reflecting on your previous practice, and that's a word that he used a lot today, was reflections. Yeah. So we talked about, so we'd done last week our development activity. He wanted us to go out to our clubs and deliver that. It's difficult for me because we play and train on the Saturday, so it's another reason it would be quite handy to get the course over and done with. But we're doing that as table activities anyway. So again, we're straight in there, reflecting as small groups, and then you speak to the whole room just about what you found when you were doing these activities. And I spoke a little bit more about what we'd done the previous week, and just that, it took a little bit longer for the kids to get it. You've got to remember, are you dealing with 30-year-old blokes, or are you dealing with 10-year-old kids, sort of thing? And when he was going on about the four-corner model as well, he was saying really it's all part of just a long-term development model. And he said, they've sounds like the FA have just borrowed a load of ideas from athletics. So, it's not all just about short-term results. It's really trying to press home that message that you're looking over that long term.
Yeah.
And ultimately within the kids, encourage that growth mindset as well. Part of that psychological. So, if you're doing something, he used an example. If you've done, got a kid and he's managed to do 10 kick-ups or something like that, say, oh, brilliant. What does 12 look like?
Yeah.
See if you can do 12, and just always just be pushing them more and more. And he used three words, I guess, to categorize who you'll typically have in your team. So he talked about your players who are forging ahead, your star players. And then he said you've got your copers, so they're just they are doing okay. And then you've got your strivers, the ones who are trying to get better and get up to at least coping.
Yeah. And
I thought that was, again, interesting. Just a simple little framework to just think of the different levels that your team are at any particular time.
Yeah, I filled that all out last week. Actually, we discussed that last week.
Oh right, okay.
And I did all my players. I found that quite interesting. Which is, you don't want to label them, but I put them into groups for all the different, like I think passing, communication, all that, and I kind of graded them, I guess, like a teacher would, as to where they sat in those fields, and that was quite interesting. And of course, like you said, then you start thinking about the social aspect, and again, and obviously it's kind of close to my heart at the moment because I've got people who don't communicate as well, and it's how do you get the best out of them? What do you do with them? And it's a whole other level that you don't really think about. So
the other thing that I thought was really interesting, he was talking about the relative age effect.
Yeah.
And that he said he used an example. I don't know if he's talking about a precise 10 years ago, but he said, if you look 10 years ago through all the academies, they're all typically the eldest in their year.
Yeah.
So basically, it's not always the case. You can have early developers who are born late in the year, but percentage-wise, you have a higher percentage of, let's say, quarter one kids in all the academies. So we're just picking the biggest, strongest, fastest players.
Yeah.
And the message that the FA have been trying to give out consistently for a while now is around this whole relative age effect. So if you have one school year which runs from the 1st of September through to the 31st of August, that first quarter, you have to know, are kids in there, or are they in quarter two? Are they in quarter three? Or are they in quarter four. And he said that statistically, if you look at the players who have the most appearances, so when they break into the professional game, have a good career there, they're actually mostly quarter four kids, or were quarter four kids. But when they were born, they were in quarter four, which I thought was pretty amazing, to be honest. So at a young age, we reward the eldest, the biggest, the fastest, the strongest. But then when you get to a point, the other guys, I guess you'd say, because they are younger, smaller, they're having to focus a lot more on their technique. You'd say they possibly are the strivers at that stage. But when it all balances out physically, they're in a better position. So, and I sort of picked him up. I was pressing him on a bit, saying, right, how long ago have we changed this? So, you said 10 years ago. Well, when did we start this new philosophy? And he sort of, when people sort of smile and then they scratch their chin a bit, as if to say, well, that's kind of a hard question. So at the end of the day, it's the Premier League clubs who really own that process, isn't it?
Yep.
And they can either adopt it or not adopt it. So the FA are promoting and evangelizing about the message, but it's up to the clubs who are ultimately businesses whether they do that. But he said a lot of the clubs are doing it now. He said you do still get some clubs, and you go to the academies, and all the kids are just massive. And I won't name any, but you can probably guess who some of them are.
Yeah.
So this was all again in that first kind of first hour and a half, 2 hours, just going through all that. And like I say, we had the usual group activities where we're taking those four corners. So again, we had 4 tables. Actually, that's why we moved the tables. Yeah. So each table worked on a particular corner, so we were on the physical table. So what you had to do was basically try and list out a load of attributes that you thought, what did that mean? General fitness, speed, power, all this sort of thing. And then we'd all swap a corner, so you'd pass your sheet onto the next table. And then, you've already got a load of things. And then the trick is, you need to find out, okay, they put a load of stuff on, but we need to find some new stuff, So we got to have a go at all 4 corners. So that was a nice little activity again, just to get you thinking. And then, we had to rank those, what's the top 3 and present that to the group. So all kind of very interactive and engaging workshop type of session there. And then this is where ours kind of differs. So like the previous days, he took us out onto the pitch, and it was shockingly cold. And it's a 3G pitch, so it wasn't too bad, but just real icy wind. And again, he just put together a really nice practice. Again, this is an extend practice, so it was almost like a little game, except he was just layering on these rules. So I think we started off initially with the thirds, and then you could only have one defender and attacker in one end of the pitch. Yeah. Same on the other end of the pitch. Then you had some midfielders in the middle, and we were evenly balanced. And then he sort of overloaded and underloaded on a few of the practices. And you comment on the goals at the side before. I thought I'd wait till I got to this bit till I mention it. So he did that for us. So at one point, like I was overloaded on the defensive side, or is it underloaded? It's probably underloaded. So the opposite team were overloading me. And we had the little side goals, if you like, or just side cones. And because it's not an 11-a-side pitch, so the idea was if I could get a tackle in, I'd try and hit it out to the side there and get it into the goal. Now he said, "Well, what does that translate to?" And it's like, "Well, I don't know really." But he's like, "Well, that'd be your fullback or your winger."
Yeah.
He said, "Well, probably if it's Man City, it'll be your fullback."
Yeah.
And I thought, oh yeah, that's why. Because I'll be honest, I thought the whole side goals thing was a bit of a just something to reward defenders with. Give them a point of being there, other than just tackling it and booting the ball away.
Yeah.
But actually, when we were playing it made sense to pass it out there because that's where your outlet is.
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, the goals weren't perfectly square on. It was at an angle, so you could imagine, a fullback running onto that pass or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good fun.
That's quite clever. Again, it's not even rocket science, but
it's all of these things are just none of them are rocket science. There's a lot, there's a lot to remember.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, no, it was really good.
Excellent. It's funny what you said when you said about the keepy uppies. I just remembered from Thursday. I sort of for the arrival activity, I had them dribbling across the pitch widthwise with a ball each, and I said, right, I want you outside of your right foot one way across, outside of your left the other way. Then I want you to roll the ball under your studs, then do step over. Just trying to get them to do different stuff, and then I said, right, I want 10 keepy uppies.
Mm-hmm.
So of course they're all doing that and booting the ball over the place. And then they said, what should we do if we get to 10? And I just said, carry on. And Dan, one of my defenders, he came up to me at the end, and it was really sweet. He said, I've just broken my record for keepy uppies. I said, oh, Dan, that's brilliant. How many did you do? He goes, I did 18. I've never got past 10 before. And I was like, it made me feel really good. It was such and he's such a lovely kid. He's really enthusiastic, and he really listens. He's the captain actually, because he's really good. He's really good at communicating and stuff. And I was so made up. I was like, nice one, Dan. That's great.
Yeah.
I've got a nice little buzz from that. It was brilliant. So
if you were my instructor, he'd have probably said, "Brilliant. What does 20 look like?"
Yeah, that's the only thing I forgot. Well, I sort of said, keep going. I said, don't just stop at 10, just carry on. So so that was good.
Yeah. But I tell you what else was funny. I don't know why I didn't have a great night's sleep last night, but in the playing session, because you've still got that player pride as well. You're not just learning about the coaching. I wasn't really on top form today in the morning session.
Right,
probably just like half asleep, but I always put 100% effort in. And it was absolutely freezing. And I've got to say, it's been a few years now since I've had a good, solid ball in the face when it's absolutely freezing.
I don't know what's worse, that or on your inner thigh.
The inner thigh was always... I think the inner thigh is possibly worse. But yeah, it was like... You're all right. Yeah, it's fine. Meanwhile, you're like, your side of your face is on fire.
Yeah. Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah. Well, it's all right now, but you just feel stupid. On the inner thigh, that is pain. But, a ball in the face, it's
there's a
bit of comedy for everyone else as well, isn't it?
There's the pain and also it's embarrassing.
Exactly, yeah.
I learned to accept a few weeks ago that my back and my knees have put paid to me being competitive. I was just glad to get through any sort of physical activity.
Right.
So there's people younger and more nimble than me, which I don't even bother trying to compete with. So I just let them get on with it.
Yeah.
It just loosens me up running around a bit. But yeah, I don't take it too seriously, thankfully. I can't. I'm in no physical state to.
So just while I think on, there are a couple of other things as well. Because at the end of that morning session, someone had asked the tutor, they said, I just don't get this particular bit. And in the morning, he'd made a case of what should you do if a kid comes up to you and says, I just don't get it, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And he said, what can you finish that off with? He said, it's just one word. I'm sort of scratching my head. What? No idea. He said, yet. You don't get it yet, or you can't do it yet.
Yeah.
And I thought, brilliant.
Yeah.
Again, just a really simple thing, but it's about the learning. It's about that messy bit.
Yeah.
It's difficult with kids, isn't it? Because I picked up this guitar and I can't play it at all.
Yeah.
Well, why would you expect that you can just do it straight away, Yeah. But I thought that was a nice, and someone had actually genuinely asked him that question and sort of joked, he's been laid up for it.
Yeah.
Just to press home the message. And he also wrote an acronym on the board. So he said, I think we were talking about success and failure.
Yeah.
So if you've got a dribbling game and you're trying to go past players, what is success and what is failure? And it seemed to jar with him a little bit, the fail word.
Yeah.
So he wrote it up on the board. He said, fail is first attempt in learning.
Yeah.
And again, he's just trying to put that positive spin on, if you certainly if you've got your strivers, and I struggle to dribble past people at the best of times, to be quite honest. So he was saying, how can you reward effort, and stuff like that, and just people trying their hardest. You want to see that, and you want to see them learning and getting better, more than just a binary kind of success and failure criteria.
Yeah.
But I really like that one, though. I don't get it. Yeah, you don't get it yet, but you will do.
That is a good one. I think I said to you the other week about one of the practices I did. It's just passing between cones or something. My kids just didn't get it at all. They were just completely bamboozled by it, and it was to me, it was very simple. And I think I said to you, the way I'd set the cones up.
Is this where they were where you were trying to short pass and thing, and they were booting the ball 20 yards down the pitch?
That was the other one.
Oh, right, okay.
That was just because they they weren't weighting their pass correctly. They knew what they were doing, but no.
Okay.
Just literally passing between cones in pairs. But the wild them a bit, but they just genuinely did not get what they had to do. It was bizarre. Even the cones that I'd laid out weren't that confusing, but they just completely. And that's what I thought. Well, yeah, you've got to sort of put yourself in their shoes, I suppose, at times, and go. They're not going to get it. So I'm quite conscious of that now, and I do try and make. I've started saying to them when I've shown them something. I said, right, is there anything you don't understand about it? Which I did on Thursday, set out what we were doing for this practice, and I said, right, is there anything you don't understand? You've got these zones. You guys are doing this. You guys are doing that. Does anybody not understand it? And they were like, no, it's fine. So, and they did get it, so we got on with it. But yeah, it's an interesting point.
Yeah, I don't know quite what an open question would be, but maybe have a think, because that's a closed question, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's only a yes/no answer to that, and most people, whether they understand it or not, are going to go, no, it's all fine. We get it. We'll figure it out on the pitch.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's an open type question. So tell me how we're going to do it, or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, taking that on to the other extreme. The other thing we talked about last week was obviously in terms of your preparation and being on the ball and knowing what you're doing in training and everything else. He said you don't want to be the coach where a kid comes up to you and says, "This doesn't work. Why are we doing this? What are you making us do this for? It doesn't work." And he's like, what are you going to say when you're in that position? He goes, "I've seen people in that position." He goes, "It's a place you don't want to be as a coach," which was quite interesting, quite scary. I've seen 12-year-olds do it. Go up to the coach and say, "This practice doesn't work. Why are we doing it?" And the coach hasn't got an answer. Just do it, because we're doing it and it's like, it doesn't work. You can see it doesn't work. I thought that's quite interesting and quite terrifying as well. Especially if you're there with parents watching and everything, you've got somebody saying, "Wow, this is nonsense." So he was kind of highlighting that and just saying, but just be very sure you know what you're doing while you're doing it, and you're never going to get it always right. But he said, that's a position you don't want to be in. And
Well,
it comes from experience and all that side of it as well. But yeah, it was interesting him talking about that.
So what? Don't want this to sound like it's coming across like blagging or something, but I think if you've thought it out,
yeah,
right, and you've got it planned, and you yourself know why you're doing it,
yeah.
Sometimes you are going to get kids who can't see the point. Yeah, so I could see kids giving that exact statement when there is, a genuine reason for it. Because at that age as well, most kids, they just want to play an actual game, don't they? Just play the game for an hour.
But all I get is when are we going to play a match? From not all of them, but from a lot of them, and you can see they're all just not going through the motions, but some of them are just sort of doing it just because they want to get to a match.
Yeah.
But I say to them, if we're not doing a practice properly, I say to them, the time we'll have to play a match will be less. If I think you're not focused and you're not doing what we're trying to do and buying into it and putting your effort into it, the match time will be less and less.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of know that.
I wonder if that comes up again, could you ask them as a group the question?
I do ask them after every practice, and I didn't used to, but obviously since we started doing this course, I've started saying at the end of each one, right, why have we done that?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it? B, why are we doing it? What are we trying to get out of it? And I'll get them to tell me. And they give good answers. Whether they have 100% felt that or not, I don't know. But I can only go by what they're saying. But I do try and get their perspective on it, because obviously they're the ones who are doing it, and they're the ones who are hopefully going to benefit from it. So I want them to take something from it. So I do ask, rather than just go, right, we've done it, let's move on. It's kind of, right, what did you get out of that? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Doing it. So I think that's really important as well.
It absolutely is, just in terms of that learning for them, and getting them thinking.
Absolutely.
So in terms of the afternoon then, was it mostly classroom stuff then? I think you said...
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we didn't go out much in the afternoon. We went out for a little bit, and then it was just discussing. What did we discuss? It was we did the four corners a bit more like you did today, and he was sort of just talking about what he did do was interesting. He said we had four tables, and he gave 2 tables Messi and 2 of us Gascoigne. Ironically enough, after the other week.
Nice.
Yeah. We wanted Gascoigne actually, because I'm on a table with lad Jamie, who's like similar age to me. So
right.
And he made us. He took the 4 corners and he said, right, he said, put down all the things applicable to Paul Gascoigne, tactical, psychological, all this sort of stuff. So that was the exercise, and the other 2 tables did Lionel Messi. And it was really interesting. Good and bad. We mostly did good stuff. We probably could have done not so good stuff as well. But yeah, we put down his skill, and physically he was bit of a specimen, but he had a lot of pace and he was very skillful, and psychologically he was good because he could just entice players in, then go past them, and people didn't know whether to tackle him or double man mark him, and all this sort of stuff.
What did you put in the social corner?
We were drink, and his extracurricular activities probably hindered his career a bit. But we also put he had a positive effect on his teammates because he was such a joker.
Yeah.
To alleviate tension and stress and all that sort of stuff. And he was it was interesting. And he was like, well, who's the better player? He's like, well, you can't compare them. Then somebody did that. Somebody said that immortal phrase, "God-given talent," and he was like, "Did he really? Was he really? Did what? Did he come out of the womb kicking and doing this? Was it God-given talent?" I was like, "Wow, yeah." I mean, some people, it's like, why? How did he know he was a good footballer? Well, he used to play when he was a kid. What did he do? Well, he played football every minute of the day.
Yeah.
Do you think he worked hard as well? Well, yeah, but he was just more talented. How do you know? It was very interesting because we all go, "Oh, he's a natural talent." You're like, well, is he? Or is he just worked so hard that he's become so adept? And he said, why have all the Brazilians got all these skillful and amazing players? Were they all born with God-given talent? Or is it because as soon as they're 2, 3, whatever, they get a tennis ball and go and kick it against the wall or go on the beat, or, all these things. So it was quite interesting. But yeah, it was very interesting trying to not categorise, but pick out all the different facets of his whole being, I suppose, and put them into those little brackets. And it just made you think about those aspects of a player and, that whole psychological level, especially. I mean, the tactical and physical stuff, I find a bit easier to sort of bracket, categorise, think about. The social and is a lot harder. Yeah. And again, I'm thinking about this player on my team, about how he's a bit different in terms of how he mixes with the rest of the players.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's a lot of social aspects in that. There's probably psychological stuff going on there as well. And so that was quite an interesting one. But yeah, it's a whole nother level, isn't it, of stuff that you've kind of got to think about when you're dealing with players.
It's funny, a few years ago now, I was, for the company I was working for at the time, I was trying to come up with a set of attributes that made a perfect consultant for us, for who we were trying to hire. Yeah. And I had loads of different attributes, but I actually ended up with 4 quadrants. Now, it just so happened that the best PowerPoint template was a circle with the 4 quadrants, so it wasn't exactly like the FA 4-corner model, but it's exactly the same. Just that idea of, from that 10,000-foot view, looking at a whole person and trying to come up with a framework of what are the different attributes and where do they sit.
Yeah.
And like you say, the technical and tactical, the physical, those are easy. And you can usually measure those pretty well, can't you? Whereas the psychological and the social, that's a bit harder to really nail. But I think it's a good thing to have them there. And, again, looking at that relative age effect, if you've got a player who's physically, maybe you've got an actual 10-year-old, and maybe physically they're like a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
But psychologically they might be, a 9-year-old. So
that's exactly what he discussed with us last week. That very same thing.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly the same thing. You've got the most physical, amazing specimen who, funny enough, we played a team the other week and their striker, I swear to God, I said to Stu, he looks about 16. Honestly, he was enormous. We'd not come across any player in any other team. And he really was huge.
Yeah.
Not like fat, but just massive.
Like a bloke.
You said he was. If you'd looked at him cold, you'd have said, he's 15.
Yeah,
14, 15, easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see the players looking at him thinking, what's going on here? And I said to them, don't worry about his size, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Of course, he wasn't a great player. They just sort of put him up front, and he was a bit of a focal point, and this, that, and the other. So I said, it just goes to show, you can be the biggest guy, but obviously then if you've got the four corners for this kid, technically he wasn't very good. Physically, huge.
Yeah.
Psychologically, probably gives them an edge because he's such a big lad. They probably get a bit more confidence from seeing him in the team. So you start to sort of think about those things.
Yeah.
So interesting.
No, it's good. It's good.
Do you find yourself doing that already? Do you think you've been doing that already though with the team to a point, thinking about, because you obviously think about, well, she's got more ability, I'll play her here. This one maybe doesn't mix as well, so let's try something. I've always kind of thought about those things, maybe not in such broad four-corner terms, but I think you're always thinking about them.
So I think yes and no, and the reason it is that, so it just gives you a nice framework. It's like any of these psychological type things. So you had what is it? The three, was it Freud who had the three ego states, and he was talking about
you're going beyond me there, mate.
Well, I'll hold on. I'll try and remember. I think you've basically got the parent ego state, you've got the adult, and you've got the child. So every single person, just think of in that framework, we've all got different aspects of those three ego states.
Right.
And so the
only thing I know about Freud is that he didn't say everyone fancies their mum or something. Was that him?
Oh, crikey.
Was that him?
I don't know. Really?
Yeah, maybe it was that
though. So, so your parent is someone, the type of personality, because that's what I was trying to do, is trying to categorize personalities. So someone who's saying everything's very binary. It's yes or no. It's right or it's wrong. Your adult is very rational and looks at things on balance, and the child, is more ruled by emotion. And it's not like if you chopped up your brain, you don't have these three little compartments. It's just a framework to think of, and it helps to structure some of those. Sometimes there may be nagging doubts or feelings that you have, and like you say, you think of it, but it's maybe a little bit jumbled. And so that's why I quite like these, especially the psychological frameworks, to just organize and try and get those thoughts that you have into some sort of order.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the only thing I'll say, so the afternoon session was, for us, again, like all the others. So we had 8 different sessions, which were extend type sessions. So they're all, a bit more complex than what we've done in the build and the development sessions. Again, really good, innovative sessions that all the coaches. I mean, there's not a single passenger on the course at all, which has surprised me a little bit. Everyone is really enthusiastic, engaged, racking their brains about how they come up with these engaging, clever sessions and stuff.
Yeah.
And practices. So yeah, and so again, now my legs are just destroyed. I'm pretty sure I won't be able to walk tomorrow. And again, a little bit like last week, the guy who I was working with, we were racking our brains, and again, right up until we did the session, we're changing it a bit and stuff. And like you say, it's bitterly cold. So when you when you're running around, you don't care so much. But when you're discussing and laying cones out and stuff, it was getting quite choppy out there.
Yeah.
And actually, so what we had people like teams. We wanted teams of 3 facing each other and dribbling in and out of cones and going past each other. So you're not trying to defend or anything, but you are creating a little bit of interference.
Yeah.
We wanted 2 lots of that. So on both sides of the pitch. So if you think you've got 4 little teams and they're all going across, we had a cone to, give a little bit of something for them to go around, to maneuver past as a dummy defender and then get a shot off at goal.
Yeah.
And because time was running out a bit, and we sort of decided, well, actually, let's just, and it was getting on. So I think I said last week, I legged it up to the board and put our name down right where I wanted it, before anyone else could. Yeah. Well, I wasn't quick enough this time, and everyone else had obviously cottoned on. So, we were discussing in the classroom. As soon as the board went up, everyone just legged it up. So we ended up second to last. So everyone's shattered. So it's just like, let's simplify it. We'll just have the 2 teams. And then you're dribbling through, and then you get your shot off away and goal. And then we just made it a bit more complex. So, we had a defender, we had our little side goals there as well. When you went through and got your shot off, then you were turning around, you were the defender, so it built up a little bit. And the instructor said, how about having, the guys going opposite ways to each other? Wow. So exactly what we were going to do, but because it was running late in the day, we just decided not to. So I just said, we were thinking of that, but we decided to just manage the guys physically.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I'd have probably liked a bit more out of mine, just a bit more, maybe working with different people on coming up with stuff and actually going out and doing it. We haven't done a lot of that. The guy I work with I've been sitting with, he's a really good guy actually, and he's a really good laugh, and we got on really well. But it would have been, I think my group's they sound a bit different to yours. They're a bit more. I mean, how many have you got on yours?
So I'm sure we started with 18, but it was 16 today.
Okay, so about a similar number.
Mm-hmm.
Do they all coach a team? All of them?
Most. There's one young lad in particular who doesn't coach. There's a guy who coaches. He does like after school clubs, so he doesn't do a team, but he does like the after school clubs. But apart from that, I mean, everyone pretty much coaches a team. Either they're the head coach or the assistant coach.
Okay. Because we've got not quite a few, but I would say 4 or 5 who don't coach at the moment and have never coached, but are either going into it or want to go into it, and a few who this is the first year of coaching.
That's interesting.
No, it is, and I think it's made our groups a bit. We all have a really good laugh and everyone mucks in, but I think some people are a bit more reserved, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit, not massively, but
yeah.
And I think it would have been interesting to see a bit more input from different people, I guess, because it's hard because we've done a lot of it on tables and he's gone around and sat with people, and sort of, we haven't necessarily taken those ideas and worked on them as a group.
Right.
Presented them. Whereas obviously I took through my routine last week, and so did some other people, but because I said not everybody's done that, so you don't know what they've come up with, what ideas they've had from their
right. Okay.
I guess just sharing a bit more I'd have found quite useful. But yeah, our guys done it in a different way. It's still a brilliant course, and I wouldn't criticise it. But obviously, having heard yours, I think I'd have probably got quite a lot out of the way yours has been done, with everybody coming up with different sessions and going out and doing them. Whereas we haven't done as much of that. But then, I don't know how many practices your tutor's put on, because ours has put on quite a few himself and shown us how he's how he's building them up, which has been good. I don't know how many yours has. Ours has done 4 or 5 different kind of sessions doing that, or showing us how he builds it up.
Yeah. So for all 3 days, he's done the morning sessions, so about an hour and a half or something, where it's one long session, but we got loads of, we never seem to have time to really settle into a game.
Yeah, no,
certainly never get bored, and it's always just layering on, a few little changes here, a bit more complexity here. So yeah, it's those morning sessions where the instructor's done it, and then in the afternoon it's over to us. Yeah. But I've the things that the instructor's done have been brilliant, and great for ideas. But I must admit, taking part and seeing the other coaches and what they've come up with is probably as useful.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And we haven't really, apart from last week when we had 2 guys and they were good. They were quite simple. But he said, it's a good practice, and we haven't had enough of that, I don't think, which would have been interesting. But it's not. We've still learned so much. I'd have just been good to tap into because that's one of the things I said right at the start. He said, "What do you want to get out of the course?" One of the first things we did when we started the whole thing, and I said, "Learning ideas from other coaches" was one of the things I actually wrote down. And I wouldn't say I've really apart from Jamie, who I sit with, who's exchanged ideas. I wouldn't say and obviously seeing other people have discussed things in the classroom and said, "Oh yeah, well we've come up with this practice, blah blah blah," but it's not the same as taking a whole session.
Yeah.
So that would be the one, not criticism, but the one thing I would have said as feedback.
Yeah, one of the things that he said we're going to do on the last day. So we obviously all have to fill out our books.
Yeah,
I think I've got plenty of work to do there, so I'm going to be scribbling down through the week.
I'm frantically finishing mine tonight, actually.
Yeah. But he said, once now you've got your 3 practices. You've got your build, you've got your develop, and you've got your extend. So you just need to write those up. And next week, we'll all write those on a big piece of flip chart paper. Yeah. And he said, just take a picture of them all, and you'll all walk away with 8 different sessions.
Exactly.
So yeah. So I mean, maybe if tomorrow's your last day and the instructor's not going to do that, why don't you suggest it? Couldn't we do this? It'd be quite handy to see what other people have done.
I think tomorrow we're talking about the match day kind of part of it. So obviously the last section of the book's all about your match day, and he's quite keen on doing that tomorrow. He said, talking about how you approach a match day and the whole everything that goes with that. So that'll be interesting. And then I can get the last bit of the book finished. But I will see. I will suggest that actually if he's not going to do it, but I don't know. All I know is we're going to get the books finished, do the match day chat. He's going to review everybody. Well, he said review. I don't think he's going to read them cover to cover. But I think he just wants to see with the thought process and stuff. And I've filled most of mine up, to be honest, apart from the sort of sections on match on your practices and stuff, which obviously will just be ongoing. But I've done all the exercises, so we'll see what he says.
I think we're watching a game, or rather observing a game, on our last day. So I don't think for the whole morning.
What, like a DVD?
No, so where we play, there's a few pitches out the back. I think there's some games on, and he's going to have us all on the sidelines, sort of taking notes and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, that's quite a good idea.
Yeah, so it should be. I mean, it's always going through courses like this one. It's just not like learning for me. You are learning, but it's not like sitting in a lecture from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock.
That's not. I mean, I was nervous about the first one, and I was a bit like, it felt like quite an ordeal to have to go through 4 whole Sundays and a couple of Wednesdays, and I was like, oh, it's a lot to do.
Yeah.
But after the first one, I've looked forward to going every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm saying now, I'm looking forward to getting the Sundays back and finishing. But I'm kind of looking forward to going tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not thinking, oh, I've got to go in and do this. It's because I've taken so much from it. It's great. And I'm thinking I might do my level 2. I don't know. I haven't decided, but I'll think about it. But
I think I'm going to enjoy some weekends first.
I won't do it for a long while if I do it.
I think it's.
While. But if I did it, I would probably do it not this summer, and I probably wouldn't do it during the season next year. I'd do it after the season's finished, maybe.
I think it's been a little bit frustrating, I must admit. So, when the matches have been going on and you're having to miss training and stuff, it's not been great. So doing it out of season, I think I'd be looking to do that. So definitely I'd be thinking of doing the level 2 as well. I think it starts to really get serious then. You're properly assessed.
Yeah,
I think whereas, here it's as long as you're broadly competent, I think you'll get through.
No, exactly. I don't think there's any sort of. I think unless you sort of turn up with your book completely empty and you've not done anything. I don't think you've got a problem. But level 2, it's all about actually getting assessed on the pitch, aren't you, and getting your training sessions assessed and stuff. So I think that's what. Yeah, you're right. Missing the games has been quite hard actually.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part I've really not liked.
Yeah.
When our club said, you've got to do your level 1, I said, is it all right to do it kind of out of season sort of thing? And they were like, well, we'd rather you did it in season because then your kids will get the most out of your coaching, which I can see totally. And obviously now I've done it, I can see that. But every other bloody coach at my age, the season's finished. I was like, you bloody cheeky. So, but then also, obviously, you feel quite smug. You think, oh, well, I've done it all now. I haven't got to worry about it in the summer.
Yeah.
To be in, but I'm glad I've kind of done it now and got it out of the way. So,
good stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else on level 1? Day 3.
Day 3. That's it.
Almost
me,
there. Yeah.
Almost there. One more half day tomorrow, and book hopefully signed.
Good stuff. Okay, so let's move on to our next section, which is our retro review. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Brian Clough. So Ben, what do you remember about Brian Clough?
That big green jumper he used to wear. He's just a legend, isn't he? Obviously, our memories of him will be at the tail end of it. Well, I wouldn't even say the tail end of his career. Probably had a good 10 years of Cloughie that I remember well from obviously following football. But I just remember probably the Nottingham Forest team he had is probably the main memory. And the thing that was so gutting about Brian Clough, he never won the FA Cup. I remember watching the 91 Cup final when Gazza got that injury.
Yeah.
They didn't win it, and I was so disappointed for him. And he just looked a bit. He looked a bit gutted at the end, and I felt really bad for him. But that Forest team he had they were a really good team to watch. And what I remember a lot about them as well. Well, the main thing is he bought a lot of players in for kind of peanuts.
They never spent much money, did they, Forest?
People like Ian Wone, for example, who hardly cost anything.
Gary Parker.
Decent player. Gary Parker, Gary Crosby, Steve Chettle, all these players, they either came through the ranks, obviously Nigel Clough.
Des Walker.
Yeah, and even strikers like, Nigel Jensen, Tommy Gaynor, they're all really sort of bargain buys, but they're always in the top 4 or 5 of the old First Division. They're always knocking around, and they always played decent football. He's just a motivator, isn't he? And you read about he was never really at training. He used to turn up for training like twice a week, apparently, or something, and you wouldn't see him for days. But on a match day, he's there, few words, bang. You just wanted to play for him.
Yeah,
and I think it's funny because you look at Martin O'Neill, and I think Martin O'Neill's cut from the same cloth. when you read a lot about Martin O'Neill, he doesn't do a lot of training. He just almost sort of comes in. He's got his coaches to do all that for him, but he gives the whole sort of inspirational speech, and he just gets the best out of the players he's got. And I think that was the great thing about Cloughy. And you read about what Roy Keane said about him since, and you could tell that guy had such an influence on Roy Keane. And Roy Keane's one of my favourite ever players, believe it or not.
So what did Keane? Because I don't think I've seen that. What did Keane have to say about him?
I can't remember specifics, but it was just more the sort of the aura that he had. And Roy Keane just, I think he vaguely remember he played up once or something, and Cloughy did what Cloughy does. He probably pinned him to a wall or something. And he said, after that, he never messed around again. Because he just had that kind of but that aura. And you knew he was the boss. And he probably didn't even have to do anything. I can't even imagine him really shouting at players. I just think he had that way about him that you just wouldn't mess with him because you had such respect for him. And he didn't have to raise his voice or throw teacups around. So yeah, just a very unique. I don't think there's ever been a manager like that, like him. Like I said, Martin O'Neill, I kind of a little bit. What's the phrase? Not wacky. That's the wrong phrase, but
eccentric.
Yeah, I would probably say that.
Yeah,
actually. He's a little bit eccentric.
I mean, he wasn't a shrinking violet, was he? He sort of. There was no issues with ego at all.
No, not. Yeah. So, what about you? He's probably the same. I mean, we're obviously the same age, so probably the same era, isn't it?
Definitely the same era, and from that sort of later 80s and early 90s time, and so I just. Coming into football, he was just a Forest manager. It's only years later I realised, he'd had a good career at Derby and, fairly infamous short time at Leeds where he just wasn't really the right fit.
Have you seen the film about that?
I have. I mean, it was a few years ago now. It's kind of a dramatisation as opposed to a documentary type, wasn't it? But what did you make to that?
Well, I found it very educational because I wasn't really aware of what short a period he was at Leeds for, and I found that quite educational because I just wasn't aware. And you look back on it now, and it's kind of madness to think, But then obviously he ruffled a lot of feathers. He rubbed people up the wrong way. He was maybe a bit full of himself when. Possibly didn't quite have the CV to be that full of himself. Maybe I don't know, but
I guess there's one thing I remember from that, and I've seen footage of him talking about it since. But he basically, Leeds were the champions at the time, weren't they? Really top side, and he basically said, "You could take all your medals,
that's right,
and throw them in the bin." Because as far as I'm concerned, you won it all through cheating, and we're not going to do that anymore. Well, why did he get rid of him? I don't understand.
It's brilliant, isn't
it? So yeah, I think he didn't do himself any favours, did he? But of course,
that was the man. He had such confidence in his own ability. It's kind of scary, I think you've got to be a manager, but to go into. No wonder people didn't like him, But.
One of the other great interviews I remember seeing from him was what was it? I'm going to have to paraphrase. I'm not going to get it perfectly right, but basically the interviewer asked him, well. What do you do? Because they're obviously getting an inkling that he's quite opinionated, and very unshakable belief in himself. And they said, "What if your assistant challenges you or disagrees with what you're saying?" He says, "Well, we'll have a chat about it, and then we'll agree that I was right."
I love that. I've heard that story a few times. It's fantastic, fantastic. It just sums him up, really, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The fact that he completely unruffled and says it in a matter-of-fact way.
Yeah.
He didn't just make that up at the time. He's probably had that same conversation, the day before or something.
Yeah. But detrimentally, unfortunately, he never got the England job because of the way he probably was, and the FA didn't want him to ruffle feathers, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And you can imagine what a great England manager he'd have been.
We talked. Ultimately, Forest punched above their weight for years, didn't they?
Yeah.
They were a smallish club, and then they didn't have a big budget. He brought in the right players, and I think for me, one of the things that Clough used to do, he used to simplify the game for players.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to make it too complicated. So if you're a winger, stay on the wing. We'll get the ball out to you, get chalk on your boots, as the old saying goes, and get it in and get some crosses in.
Yeah.
That's it. Don't worry about anything else. Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, I said you're right.
Yeah. And so, if he'd have got his hands on the England players, who knows what that might have looked like. But like you say, you can. You can see a little bit. We've got rid of a few managers through scandalous situations, haven't we? We had most recently Allardyce went. We had. Did Venables go of his own accord? I think
he did. I think he didn't. I don't know if he fell out with the FA or whatever.
There was something weird. It wasn't for footballing reasons, was it?
And I think because he had extracurricular business interests. And
it was something like that, wasn't it? Some kind of financial thing. Glenn Hoddle, again, had to be sacked for footballing reasons. So I'm not going to say I forgive the FA or I'm excusing them, but you can maybe empathise with them that they take a safe choice.
Yep.
Rather than, someone like Clough, who, has got to be one of the best English managers to never actually go and manage the team.
Easily. And you're right, it's funny what you said about wingers. That's the other thing I remember about his teams. He always played with two wingers. Even when they won the European Cup, John Robertson.
Yeah.
He did, real old school, but 4-4-2. Yeah, a simple game. And it'd be interesting to see how he would get on managing now. So I don't think he'd struggle now, but it's just it'd be interesting now the game's changed so much. How would he approach it? He'd probably do it, I would guess, very similarly. But would it work now for him? I don't know. But it would be fascinating to find out.
Well, I think who knows? One of the, again, you think you don't remember that much, and you don't. You forget a lot more than you remember, probably. But one of the things I do remember, he was talking about football agents. Right. And of course, I
bet you love them.
Exactly. You probably know where this is going. So through the early 90s, the money really started to come into the game a lot more than it ever had done before. And so you get people outside the game then, more and more football agents getting involved.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he said something like, if football agents were around, when Shankly was around, he said, I'd have held him down and he'd have thumped him, something like that. And it was like, you can't say that, Brian.
Well, he kind of could, though.
Yeah, he just said whatever he wanted. I remember there was a pitch invasion. Do you remember the pitch invasion?
Yeah, he clocked that guy around the head.
That's right. And but the guy, he apologised to Brian Clough, didn't he? Sorry,
Genius.
Brian.
Yeah, absolutely genius. Loved that. I love that. I remember that whole thing. I remember watching that on the news at the time, thinking, "What is going on?"
Just running around the pitch, giving them a clip round the ear
He used
roll.
to kind of get away with it because of who he was.
Yeah. Oh,
Really
he
bizarre.
did have a massive sort of aura around him, didn't he?
The
Wasn't
only
it?
shame, the only shame for me is that he. Do you remember the sort of sad days at the end where I think they got relegated, didn't they, Forest? And he was just kind of a real. I think obviously he had other problems going on, and he's just a
Yeah.
shadow of the man he used to be. And it was a real sort of sad. You almost wish he'd gone out on a high.
Yeah.
And I don't think people will remember him as being a down and out or anything, but it was so sad to see the sort of decline, and he just stuck to his principles all the way through. And in the end, they kind of got found out, and they struggled, and he stuck with it. And yeah, it was just kind of sad to see, really.
I think so I guess for me, there's two things. There's physically, he looked like he was hitting the sauce a little bit.
Well, I think that's been well proved. That's been confirmed since, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, I was being diplomatic there.
Very diplomatic.
But he was at the time. There was no doubt. He was hitting the sauce quite a lot, and they were a seller club, weren't they? So they had to sell on generally their best players, and so clubs who do that, you can only do it for so long and keep finding those new gems. So, I think they just probably reached that tipping point. And I remember all of that season seeing on just about every match of the day, well, Forest are down there, but they're too good to go down.
Yeah.
And that phrase, too good to go down, I just remember being used over and over that season. And I remember, Roy Keane was playing in that side, and he ended up playing Roy Keane at centre-back. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do.
And again, you sort of think, right, well, yeah, he is your best player, you're leaking goals, but I'm not quite sure that's the right answer.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing an interview with him years after where he was basically, without ever really admitted he was wrong, which I'm not sure he'd quite go that far, but he said probably one of the mistakes that he made was he started to listen more to other people's advice about players. So rather than going to see a player himself, if someone advised him, and I can't remember if the centre-back's name was like Turner or something like that.
Yeah. There
was a centre-back that was supposed to be a good young centre-back. I think Liverpool were looking at him at the time as well, and they bought him, but he ultimately just didn't quite cut it. He wasn't good enough for that level. So, I think they probably just made a few wrong choices on the recruitment, and like you say, they went down that season, and then they ended up selling Roy Keane to Man United. But if they'd have stayed up, they'd probably got more money. Whereas, in those days, if you went down, it was generally accepted. You have to sell your best players to balance the books.
Yeah. No, and that's one of the first times I can ever remember thinking or being shocked by a team getting relegated. I think it doesn't happen often. You kind of something, oh yeah, well they've gone down, but there's occasionally a team will come along. You think, I remember when Newcastle got relegated when Shearer was manager for a little bit.
Yeah.
Stunned that they got relegated, and it was the same when Forest went down. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, how on earth? And that's probably the first time I'd ever felt that about a team. But it just goes to show it doesn't matter who you are. If you're not managed right and you're selling your best players and you're replacing them with players who aren't as good, like you said, you can only do it for so long and you're going to run into trouble.
Yeah, when Newcastle went down that year, I thought it was a bit of a shock. But when you're taking a punt on, a great player because you're hoping he's the Messiah. I
yeah.
thought, to be honest, that was curtains then. When they actually got relegated, I wasn't surprised. But I'll agree with you on Forest. I think massive, massive shock because, even they were down there at Christmas. It's like, yeah, they'll turn it around. They've got too many good players. They're too good. And throughout my football watching life, they'd always been up there.
Yeah.
So, it was a massive, massive shock.
No, it was. And, it was a sad way for it. I don't think I'm pretty sure he retired then, didn't he? I don't think he carried on after that.
No, I think
I don't remember him managing them down. I think Frank Clark probably took
Frank Clark, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. But, he'll go down as one of the greats, and rightly so.
Well, there's not many sides who've won the European Cup back to back.
Twice, no, which is incredible, really.
For a team like Forest, I mean, anyone would be proud of that, but for Forest to do that was just unheard of. And I'm probably, just bear with me, probably didn't tell you that I saw an after-dinner speech by Peter Shilton once.
Right.
I ever told you that?
No, I don't think you have.
So, and he was actually quite a funny guy, which surprised me, to be honest. And
he wouldn't come across as a life and soul to me, to be fair.
No, I think some of it was well practiced. I think when he got to the end, he sort of said, because throughout his talk he was talking about alternating keepers between him and alternating the England keepers. So that meant him and Ray Clements basically had to share the number one position.
Right.
He got to the end of the talk and he said, "If you've enjoyed my talk, I'm Peter Shilton. If you didn't, I'm Ray Clements."
Hey,
which I thought was quite good. But he was talking about the second cup final and that they played Hamburg, and he said they were just brilliant. And he said it was real backs to the wall stuff. And I've never seen the game, to be honest. I just got what he's saying. I just take that at face value.
Yeah.
But the way he was telling the story, it was real backs to the wall stuff. They managed to get a goal, but then, it's just backs to the wall, right? Try and hang on, but it didn't look good. And someone got injured at some point. One of their international players, one of their better players, and it was the days of two subs. So, and they'd had a few injuries, and so they ended up with this young lad on the bench, and so there was no choice. They'd already used one sub, and there was no other choice than to consider throwing this young lad on the bench. And so he said the first thing that happens is, the injured player sort of hobbles a bit and looks over at the bench, and everyone sort of looks over at Clough, and he said, you just see this big, massive finger coming out the dugout, this pointy finger, get back out there. So you have to stay out there. But then he tells this young lad, right, start getting warmed up. And so, he said this lad's really nervous. You can see he's hardly played for Forest, let alone a game of this magnitude.
Yeah.
But he's sort of trying to do his warm-up and stuff. And then it's obvious this other player's got to come off. So he sort of turns to him and says, right, get your tracksuit off. And he says, this young kid, he's fumbling with his tracksuit. He can't even get his zipper off his tracksuit. He's so nervous. And so Clough, he's sat there with his arms folded. Now, I'll give you the very sanitized version. This is not obviously what he said, but for the recording, I'll give you the sanitized version. But he turns to his assistant. He says, right, we're in the deep stuff now then, aren't we? So this young kid can hear him. And then, so, the legend has it that he goes, right, I'm going to show you, and whips off his tracksuit and then goes on and has the best sort of 12 minutes of his career, and has a bit of a blinder there. So I thought that was a nice little story. I've never seen, an interview to validate what Shilton was saying that day, but it was quite a good story.
Oh, I like that.
But yeah, so anything else on Cloughie? I mean, there must be tons of
I think we're too
quotes
young, to be
and
honest.
things. Yeah,
we're too young, mate, to think about all those other great years he had. That's my excuse, anyway.
Yeah, but like you say, I mean, the football that they played, and again, it was possibly, we were talking about Wimbledon the other week, weren't we? And the influence they had on the English game and them going a bit more, a lot of the teams going a bit more direct.
Yeah.
And I think...
Yeah, exactly the same in the other way for the football that was played. And like I said, it's a simple game. And tying it back to the coaching course, again, the guy keeps saying it's a simple game.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to overcomplicate it. It's two teams. One's trying to score in one goal, the other's trying to stop them, and also scoring that goal. And it's kind of, that's what you sort of have to tell yourself sometimes. And I think, he was a real advocate of that and keeping it simple and just playing good football. And that's the way it should be played.
Yeah. I think what's just popped into my mind, actually. I was trying to think, when did Des Walker go to Italy? I wonder if that sort of was a little bit of a nail in the coffin, because he was there as long as I can remember watching football. He was at Forest, and he was head and shoulders the best centre-back around at the time.
He was awesome.
And then he sort of went to Italy and not quite sure what happened, because he never came back the same player at all, did he? But no, I think losing him was a massive blow to Forest at the time.
Yeah, I don't want to digress too much, but Des Walker, I can honestly never think, I'd probably struggle even a more rapid decline of a player that I'd ever seen than what happened to him. It was unbelievable. In my mind, actually, I'll give you that one.
But it's not, I mean, there's not many, is there?
I mean, there's that, that song, "You'll Never Beat Des Walker" and all this.
Yeah,
it's true. He had everything, and then it was like somebody cloned him. Pub player, and he's not as extreme as that, but he was just, I don't know, he was just nothing like the player he used to be. And I remember watching him play for England, and I can't remember, it might have been when we drew with Holland or something. And he just got absolutely skinned for pace and gave away a penalty. And I don't think anybody had ever seen that before.
Yeah.
But the weird thing it's not like he was even that old. He was still in his pomp. But it was like he said, he'd gone there and he was just shot to pieces.
Yeah.
Really strange. But yeah.
It was weird.
Again, another one, another Cloughie gem, I guess you'd call him.
Yeah, absolutely.
His pomp, so, yeah, strange.
Okay, then. I think we'll wrap it up there then.
We will, and we shall reconvene for the final day. And we can hopefully both sit here and say, yep, we are done. Ticked off. So that'll be a good discussion.
Yeah, definitely. You've been listening to the Grassroots Coachcast. If you do like the show, then please go ahead and hit that subscribe button on iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcast catcher of choice. And while you're there, we really do appreciate those 5-star reviews or a Go Lazzo that helps other people find the podcast. You can get in touch with us by email at grassrootscoachcast@gmail.com, or if you want to tweet us at grootscoachcast, we'd love to hear from you.
So once again, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and we shall catch you soon. Cheers.
Cheers, Ben.